Hey, G, I was wondering if you could do a tutorial on how to write a story.
Okay, I'll make a story tutorial. I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm D the Dot. For those of you who are new, I have done multiple tutorials on how to make OCs already, so for this video to be a little easier, go check those out. If your story is already developed, then proceed. Now that you've learned how to world build, make characters, write backstories, and write villains, it's time to focus on the most important part of all, the story. We'll start really basic, and what that's gonna look like is the basic arc of the story. Think of the story like a roller coaster, not a crazy one, just a simple one. It starts out with an exposition, or beginning action. Something that kicks off your story. That is followed by rising actions, things that bring you towards the height of your story. The height of your story is the climax. Following your climax is a relatively quick set of falling actions and a conclusion. So how do you write an exposition that makes sense for your characters and world? First of all, think of your world building and how your character lives in society. What do they do on the daily? How are they feeling at the start of your story? Who are their friends? Now, think of a problem that could arise in your world, something big that would seriously affect your character's life. This problem is going to be your character's call to action. What drives the story? A call to action can come in many forms, from an object to a prophecy to getting literally thrown into whatever comes their way. Or heck, even a mix of multiple of those. You have complete free reign over everything you do for your story, because it's your story. If your character lives a regular day-to-day life, make something fantastical happen to them. If your character lives with the most exciting life ever, throw them in a situation where they just don't get that kind of adrenaline. I think I'll be using Percy Jackson as a reference because I really like the way he starts his journey in The Lightning Thief. Mild Percy Jackson, actually no, big Percy Jackson spoilers, but basically, at the very beginning of the story, he's just living as a troubled kid who has to switch schools a bunch and just isn't really doing the best academically or socially. And he has these weird visions. He can see things that other people can't, and no one really believes him. But he finds out that's because he's a half-blood, and then he's just kind of thrown into danger. He has to fight off monsters, do quests, stuff he never signed up for. Literally the first line of the book is, "Look, I never wanted to be a half-blood." So honestly, for your exposition or your call to action, just make your character really uncomfortable. The rising actions are gonna take up most of your story. There might be mini climaxes along the way, points that further push your character along their story, but typically this will take up the vast majority of your overarching story. Rising actions are anything that brings your character closer to the biggest conflict of the book, whether that's going on a quest fighting monsters along the way and slowly fulfilling their destiny, or slowly falling in love with their romantic interest. You need to spend the most time on rising actions, because rushing to the height of your story takes away all impact it has on readers. If you read a romance book and the two main characters fell in love within 2 chapters, it would mean literally nothing to you. So once again, Percy Jackson, spoilers, skip to the timestamp, blah blah blah, he fights off Medusa, he goes to the Lotus Casino, he travels with his friends, he drives even though he's 12, They have so many different stops and problems along the way, but it all leads up to the absolute climax of the story. Which of course brings us to the climax section. The climax of your story is extremely important. It can last anywhere from a few episodes/chapters to a whole fourth of your story. I suggest spending way less time on the climax and more time on the rising actions, but at the end of the day, it's up to you. The climax is where your characters need to get truly tested, a near-death experience, a threat to their career, a truth revealed after so much trust. This is quite literally the most intense part of your story. If you let consumers down on the most intense part, it will be underwhelming and disappointing. Very often, a climax will be at the end of a season of a show, or the end of a book in a series. So if your story stretches across the span of multiple seasons or books, or whatever it is you're doing, the grand arc of your story will have multiple climaxes. It's important, if you're doing that, to make each one more intense than the last. Finally, we arrive at the falling actions. The conflict was resolved, your character won. Now what? Their life shouldn't go back to where it was at the exposition. Things have changed. Your character has hopefully developed and grown through their trials, and their life is in a new light. Once again, if you're writing a longer story that stretches across the span of multiple books or seasons or whatever, there should be a sense of danger or mystery even after everything occurs. That sets you up for the sequels. A problem I've seen multiple times in fiction is spending too much time on the falling actions, because honestly, you should not stretch out your story more than it needs to be. If your conflict is resolved and you don't have much more to say, people won't typically care about anything that comes after. A little life update on the characters is great, but it honestly shouldn't be more than 1 to 3 chapters or 1 episode of a show. Once your story is completely wrapped up, it's completely wrapped up. You could try to save it with new characters and arcs, but honestly at that point, why not just start a new project entirely? If people actually like your story, they'd love to see more projects from you. Now, I just gave some pretty set examples, but if your story is more slice of life based, just water down those ideas a bunch. It can still follow that arc, just in a much more mild way. For episodic stories, take exactly what I gave you and shrink it down so that arc happens in every episode or chapter. I always think adding a bit of an overarching story is good along with episodic stuff, but do as you will. So, I was originally planning on doing a story writing video and a storytelling video separately, but now that I'm thinking about it, storytelling is something I've already talked a lot about in this video, so I might as well finish the job. In my opinion, the most important part of storytelling is pacing. If your project is too fast-paced, it won't leave an impact on people. If it's too slow-paced, it will genuinely become frustrating and annoying for consumers, and you'll likely lose a lot of supporters pretty quickly. Trust me, I get that pacing is really hard to get right. I spent 8 months writing a book that someone could probably read in less than a day. I spend hours every single week working on my webcomic, which is easily bingeable in probably less than 30 minutes. It is extremely frustrating to pace things correctly, because sometimes it feels like no matter how much time you put into something, the pacing will always be too fast or too slow. For this, I suggest writing a really quick summary of your plot before you start working. Decide what's going to happen in each chapter and episode beforehand, and then follow that plan. I have the entirety of Silly Cats Co. planned out episode for episode. It's helped me a lot to know what's going to happen in the next episode I work on each week. However, with this idea, I suggest keeping things really brief. Just write down a general idea for each chapter and you can figure it out along the way. The reason I suggest this is because it'll seriously help your motivation, because you still get to actively come up with ideas as you work. If you follow your pacing plan and it ends up being too fast, add in filler episodes and more details. I know a lot of people are filler haters, but they can definitely be done well. Look at Avatar: The Last Airbender. And as long as that's not most of your story, then you're good. Now, possibly one of the biggest questions I get asked on my channel: how do you actually present your story? What kind of media? How do you not lose motivation? I'll be going over the ones I personally know about, pros and cons of each thing. A book. Pros: you get to add tons of details about your characters. It typically leaves an impact on people. You don't have to worry about making one frequently, you get more time to work on things. Cons: it takes a really long time. It's hard to get a fandom surrounding your book. It's hard work. Editing, revising, rewriting, looking back at your first attempts at something and thinking it sucks. It's not easy. Webcomic. Pros: it's really fun to do. It's easy to set up, and it keeps people extremely invested and excited for more updates. Cons: it takes a lot of work art-wise. It's really hard to get people to read it without already having a following, and it takes time out of your week every single week. Animated series. Pros: it's likely to get some attention. Lots of people are big on indie animation right now. You'll also most likely get the most financial support from people who just want to help the cause. Cons: it is extremely difficult, time-consuming, and may cause burnout quickly. You will need a team. Doing it alone is possible, I guess, but very, 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 very hard and not good for your mental health. It's also demotivating and might make you give up on your story entirely. But hey, it's cool as heck. YouTube series. I don't know what else to call it. Think of like Zane Sire's videos. Pros, pretty easy to do, enough time for good quality art, and they get a lot of attention. Cons, with only releasing snippets of the story instead of the arc in order, consumers can get confused really quickly, which can spark controversy and disloyal fans. Those are the most common ways I've seen people present their OCs, and every last one of those has gotten me attached to someone else's characters at least once. At the end of the day, people will only care about your stories if you make them care, and the only way to do that is to be your own biggest fan. If you're not passionate about what you're making and you're only doing it for views or money or attention, then you might as well quit now. For the best example I could give, look at Elio. I haven't watched it, so I can't really say whether or not it's good, but the point is, they didn't make me want to watch it. Ever since the very first trailer for the movie, it's so obvious that there was little to no passion put into it. I know a lot of artists did care about it when working on the project, and I have huge respect for them, but the directors didn't. It was the safest, easiest movie they could make, so they made it. I haven't really heard anyone praising this movie because not even the people who directed it seemed to care. The same goes for you indie creators. If you don't care deeply about your characters and stories, then it's not gonna get the attention you want it to get. So don't cater to what other people want to see, cater to what you want to make. Of course, this wouldn't be a D the Dot video without saying,
Thank you for supporting me financially.
To Wizard Plays Games and Ash1Soso on Discord, and AliGHT43 and Random Epic Cake for being Ko-Fi members of the silliest cat tier. You guys are seriously the best, thank you so much. If you want to receive a shout out, leave a super thanks in the comments, donate to my Ko-Fi, become a member of my Ko-Fi, or boost my Discord server. And small update on my merch, I have received the samples. They are so cool. I am literally obsessed with these shirts I designed. And I'm so excited to announce it. So that should be coming really, really soon. I just have to make a few small edits to some things, but otherwise, we good, gang. I'm so hyped. Okay, bye!